Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the American Duchess podcast. Before we get started, I wanted to take a minute to let you know that this episode is going to be a little different than our normal episodes. This is part 2 of our time with Dr. Robyne Calvert at the Glasgow School of Art archives, and for the next chunk of time, we're going to be looking at some of the original garments that the archives had taken out of storage for us to examine and look at. So the audio and video, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're about to enjoy is not necessarily a fluid conversation, but a collection of snippets from our study time at the Glasgow School of Art archives. Again, we want to extend our thanks to the Glasgow School of Art and Dr. Calvert for their time and allowing us access to the collection. It was an incredible day, and we're so thrilled to finally be able to share it with all of you.
Right, so this first color is the one that's by, we think, a student of Anne Macbeth.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have like loads of profound things to say other than, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really interesting too, the way this design comes down. I think it's one of the more unusual shaped ones. But you can see if you get up, you know, kind of close to it. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not the most perfectly stitched. It's a little bit shugly, as we say in Glasgow. Shugly. It's a little bit shugly along here. But I mean, you know, you're looking at these things from a distance. It's probably a bit like my nail polish today. Don't look at it up close. But you know, it actually is really quite beautiful, quite simple. I think the color in this is
Really great colors.
yeah, it's stayed up pretty well. It's held up pretty well.
She's done back stitches. No,
Yes.
couch stitches. She's couched it. They're French knots, satin stitch. The hearts are lovely. Lots of French. I don't know what this stitch is called. Then we got like, I think that's Romanian stitching there.
See, you're like so much better at this than I am. I'm so glad you're here.
But the French knots are actually tricky. Like, you can pull through a French knot so fast. So the fact that she did all of these French knots, yeah, like that's like one at a time, like wrapping and pulling it down.
we can do.
Ooh, and it's messy. The lining's okay. So the lining's shattering.
Well, we've got it's had some conservation work too, which is great. So you can see that there's actually a net to consolidate it. But yeah.
Do you know what the yarns are made out? Because we were talking about this. It looks like crewel work, but there's a gloss and a sheen that looks more like silk.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that it was probably silk.
Okay. Just a really thicker yarn.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I mean, since it has been conserved, we might have more information in an object file. But
okay. And was there any evidence of any like connection, like hooks or bars at the back of the collar?
Well, we can look. If you hold that one out. There. I mean, I don't see, but they may have been removed. Looks like there's a loop on this side. See, there may have been a hook and a loop.
Yeah.
They may have been taken off or even just lost.
Yeah.
If they were damaging the fabric.
Maybe. Or maybe she wore like a brooch or something in the back, and that would be really cool.
Oh yeah, she could have. Was there any marks?
More artisticness.
I mean, it
looks very good. It looks in very good shape there. But
Well, do you know what else? It might have also just been a student piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that it was worn. But that if it's here in the collection, it may have been. Well, they didn't have degree shows the same way at the time, but it might have been her degree piece or something that was just marked and then it was kept in the collection. So it may have never been finished for wear.
Okay. So this is, now I'm like looking at it, I'm like, okay, this is on the straight, it was cut on the fold, that's on the bias to fit around the neck. And the collar, sorry, I'm like breaking down.
Good. No, this is great. Now you're saying, you can take some close construction pictures.
So the collar that we're looking at here, it's a really pretty coppery,
pink,
corally,
mauve.
Yeah. Not pumpkin, not russet.
Skin tone.
Fleshy, pinky, corally, brownish, orangish color. Silk velvet. Every color. Silk velvet that has been embroidered with what we think is a pretty heavyweight silk yarn. And it looks like it was cut on the fold with the back opening being on the bias. The center front's on the straight, and it has a stand-up collar, and it's been hand embroidered with dark green, sea foamy, cerulean, celadon.
It's more like celadon.
That's what I was trying to say. A darker orange, some purples, hand embroidered yarns with a lot of French knots. Couch stitches. I think we have some satin stitches, some Romanian stitches. It almost looks like a manta ray.
Yeah.
Like flat?
Kind of when it's laid out flat.
Yeah.
What I noticed
Yeah.
about this is the color palette's actually really subtle.
Yeah.
It's not like hit you in the face like, I'm artistic.
Yeah, it's very sophisticated.
Well, this is it. Actually, the color palette across the board is exactly like that because they were interested in the natural tones.
Yeah.
So it is things that are kind of derived from nature. So I think saying coral and sea foam are actually quite accurate. And so
it looks like sea creatures.
Yeah. So the overall look of this, if you were to wear it, would be that you would have a nice big wide circle around your neck. That went all the way around, and then a piece that extended down the front of your bodice that might actually kind of cover as a flap over buttonholes on a button-up shirt.
Yeah.
So you'd have a nice kind of vertical piece extending from the top.
And if you had a belt on, you could secure it to the belt because they're at the very bottom. There's about an inch or so that doesn't have a lot of embroidery on it, just enough.
Yeah.
But not as sort of like. There's no more French knots that if you tucked it into a belt. Or
if you were a petite Victorian-sized woman like yourself, you could put it into a belt.
If you had a short torso, unlike
torso. And just to mention really quickly before we move on, also in this box is this really interesting, also a collar. Again, I think these were probably degree pieces. Lovely. It's just a strip of dark velvet that has some hand embroidery across it in purple tones with some beads that are also stitched into it, and then a big button. So you would just snap it really around your neck and wear it, and there you have a nice little
collared shirt.
Collared shirt. Yeah.
Artistic detail.
And
That's
that
right.
ties in with what you were saying about people embroidering and embellishing their own things with the small little pieces to wear themselves. It's something we don't really do today, and I think a lot of people are actually kind of, they either don't know the handicraft or they're too scared to do it. They're like, oh, I don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
This is so janky on the inside.
We're missing some beads and stuff down.
It's very messy on the inside, and to me, it looks also. She probably embroidered it straight, but it's gone a little on a journey. It's not very even.
No. And that velvet is pieced.
Yeah.
Oops, that's too short.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's always a struggle with making collars because you get the measurement and you think that it's right, and then collars almost always end up coming out just a scotch too short. And so you have to piece it in.
I think it's
really a nice touch, though.
It is, and I think you've raised a really good point, Lauren, about sort of being brave to do stuff. Because I just had a memory pop in my head of being back as an art student, and I had a pair of jeans that I'd cut off to make shorts, and I just sat there with some thread one day, and I embroidered a peace sign, and I embroidered a heart. I embroidered like the little. You know, it was the 90s, all the garbage, the little happy face that we was really big. And I didn't care, because I was, so I think now I'm like, oh, these are my clothes and I paid for them. And like, I'm not sure I would get brave
enough to do it.
But we should be doing this stuff.
This adds such a nice touch of personality to your clothing. Yeah. That even if you're, say, wearing just jeans and a white button-up shirt,
then you
put that on, and
all
of a sudden it changes it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's that little point of interest, you know, and it's cheap.
Yeah.
And interestingly, just as an aside, for Margaret MacDonald, for example, in the artwork that she made, you often will find embroidery beads embedded in the surface of her gesso panels and things. Yeah. And again, it's about a cheap material that ends up having a really impressive effect. We'll see some of those later on in Adventures in Glasgow today. But anyway, do you want to move on to the next one?
I love this. This is just, it's so beautiful. I'm excited. I want to see this thing laid out, though.
Right. Okay, so this is the color that's by Grace Melvin, and she was a student here at the art school, and in the right around sort of turn of the century, she actually ended up in Canada ultimately, in Vancouver with her sister and brother-in-law, but she did teach back and forth. She's a very interesting figure. Our friend Karen's writing a lot about her at the moment, so maybe we could get Karen to actually do a little Grace Melvin thing for you at some point, but for her PhD. But this collar, very interesting. Oh my goodness. If we can just gently. And notice we have good archive form here. For anyone who sees video, we've got our gloves on. We're gently. I always tell my students, and because I think you were trained a bit by Becky too at Glasgow Museums. Maybe?
I only met her occasionally. I was trained mostly by Linda.
Well, it's
Linda
just
Baumgartner.
about. I always tell my students, don't make her do anything she doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
With a dress.
Gentle. Keep her happy.
That's right. But yeah, so laid out. I mean, this is more just like a little shawl.
Yeah.
You just toss this on. There's no fastening. I mean, you could have possibly had like some other of this type might have like a ribbon or something here. But yeah, basically, and it is a very. I mean, if you want to talk, I love hearing you talk about the embroidery and what you're seeing in the stitch. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, well, we would call the pinks here, this looks like what I would call a Mackintosh rose. It has that aesthetic that is very iconic here in Glasgow, but everything looks like it's either satin stitch, I see couching, probably like Romanian stitches, so a lot of it actually looks very basic to me, very easy to do.
But well done.
Like
her overlaps here are really quite nice, actually.
Yeah, a lot of patience. The green squares here, how she's done that, it draws to the texture. Like I want to touch it.
Yeah.
It's very tactile to me.
Yeah.
And do you know what the fur is around the edge?
I don't know.
I think it's beaver.
Yeah.
It has guard hairs here. I don't have clothes on, but sheared beaver does look like this.
Okay.
But without touching it with my actual fingers, I wouldn't be able to tell. It might also be coney, which is rabbit.
Yeah.
It may also be sheared mink, but I'm gonna guess it's sheared beaver.
I'm gonna guess it's probably whatever the least expensive one would have been.
Which would have been coney.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say actually, I thought it might be rabbit, but I don't know for sure.
Those are the guard hairs. That's why I think it's beaver, because it has a woolly.
I will go with your expertise because I do not have.
I'm not good with fur.
I have a freakish sort of like knowledge of fur. I used to do taxidermy in school.
Amazing! That is really cool. So
so this is unlined. Would it have been lined?
I think probably not actually. Yeah. I think because it's quite a thick. Yeah, just toss it on, kind of.
Yeah, and like the edge here, like it's basically finished. Yeah. It would have been a cleaner finish if she had lined it, but it doesn't look like it.
Because typically with fur trimmed garments like that, this is what's rolling the edge over, like we did with the muff, where you have to have something to turn and then whip it down to, and then they would have just lightly tacked in a lining over that. But if there's no indication, I'm not sure.
No, there doesn't seem to be. That's that's conservation.
Oh, this is conservation.
I think.
Or is this tarlatan?
Well, maybe actually.
For stiffness.
Since
we can't use our fingers to feel it.
Hard to.
Right. It may be related to the fur edge, because you see that too. turning under edges of fur.
So that keeps the support on to keep it to.
Yeah, so it allows you to turn the edge of the fur, because you can't just fold it over and then stitch it down because it's hide.
Right.
You have to turn it with something like a tape of some sort, and then that's what you stitch down. That makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I'm so glad you guys are here.
This is great.
So there's some really lovely beadwork, and I think this is definitely. I would say, Abby, just and not in a corrective way, but I would call this a Glasgow rose.
Well, okay, my bad.
Oh no, it's fine. It's just because even though I'm supposed to be Mackintosh expert, he gets way too much credit.
Yeah,
like, it's. I mean, it is a rose that's upset, and this is a really nice kind of variation of it because it's a really perfectly symmetrical kind of a derivation of it, whereas the Glasgow one we know is a little bit, it's just got a bit more asymmetry to it.
Again, there's always going to be pictures on the blog, but it's a particular type of aesthetic when it comes to this design, this rose, and it's circle. So it's very. How would you describe this?
Well, it's an abstracted rose, and it often, I mean, it's just about breaking down, but I mean, you do see it actually outside of Scotland too. You do see it in English arts and crafts. Yeah. It shows up in Belgium. It's just about taking that symbol, and one of the things I haven't talked about, which is a whole other thing, is European symbolism and the connection of all of this work to that as a movement, and the idea of taking popular kinds of symbols and just using them so people have the suggestion of ideas about. So, you know, anyone out there, so what does a rose mean? They go, love, spot on. Anybody can get it. So it's using really simple symbols and shapes and breaking them down. And I haven't said, all of this has a direct connection to Art Nouveau in design. I mean, it's Glasgow style. Glasgow style is considered to be sort of the Scottish manifestation of Art Nouveau. Those terms are really problematic, and there's a whole other lecture about all of that. But in its essence, it's about responding to nature, finding organic farms, and finding new forms of expression in art. It's got a lot of really important, probably unsung connections to the birth of modernism in art as well. I think we always, in art history, you know, they're like, look at the Impressionists, they did it. It's like, hang on, no, England and Scotland are doing interesting things too. And actually quite influenced. So it's a much more complicated thing. But anyway, that was a big tangent off of, yes, that's a Glasgow rose.
And beads.
Quite beautiful. So it has it's very round, and then it has a square in the middle that has beads in it, some like tulip beads.
They're like little black tulip bead work all around the square, and then in the middle there's this green stone surrounded by 4 pink ones. So you've got the same kind of lovely palette. I love the palette of this one too because of these earthy colors, but on this like deep mauve velvet is just with the brown. It's not colors, and
then like the soft sages.
You don't necessarily think. I'm thinking about painting my walls, and I'm like, oh, actually, that's the color I want for my kitchen.
This shape is so typical of 1890s, but then with this embroidery on it, it just takes it. It just takes it somewhere else. It takes it
what I also find interesting and somewhat complicated about this one too is it is a bit later. I think this is. I'll double check, but I want to say this is dated for us around 1910.
Okay.
That might be so it's almost like that simplification of it is just a little cape. It is almost like a little evening cape.
Well, this shape is so classic. Like I feel like you could wear it in any time period, and it would never really be out of place. What dates it is the embroidery design. And this one again would be really easy, basic geometric shape to cut. You cut it on the fold. It looks like it's on the straight. The points at the front end up just naturally bias-y, but not really. It's still very much the grain is on the straight. So again, it's a very simple shape to cut. Very simple. The pattern is there, and then that shape there.
It actually reminds me a lot of the shapes that you see in Workwoman's Guide for 1830s. Like they just don't. Capes just don't change that much, but it's what you do with them. That, well, if you put a strip down the front, that's so very of that time period. I've never seen anything else like that. But this one's pretty standard. But it's just taken to this other place.
It's just the design that makes it.
This her personal touch is what made it. And I bet this would have been great on most, like 99% of the time here in Glasgow.
Just toss it on. Adds that extra little warmth around your shoulders. That's what we do with our scarf. You're a little chilly in the room, toss it on. I am going to make one of these and keep it in my bag. I should have to.
I would probably add a tie there to make sure.
Or I'm going to ask someone who knows how to make things to make one of these more so. Hey, student.
Want some extra credit?
Hey everyone, Abby here. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for supporting this podcast and everything we do at American Duchess. It really means a lot to us, and it helps us more than you know. Also, if you'd like to be a part of our little community, consider joining our Patreon. With coupons, free patterns, early access to videos, there's a lot there, and we're always adding new things. All right, enough of me. Now let's get back to the show.
School named Daisy McGlashan. Well, that was her married name. She was Daisy. No, Anderson was her married name. Anyway. Yeah.
Exactly.
God. And
so do you want to look at it?
And the box first. So here we are in the box.
Oh my God.
So and just do a little bit, And so we'll take it. We can take it out.
Yes, so if we grab the tie bit at either end, and it looks a bit like a body when you. So if you grab it at either end, we'll just pull it out. And we'll just squeak it out over here. There we go. And then the belt as well.
Oh yes.
Here, and then I'll get rid of the box. So we've got plenty of space.
Okay. I think we'll leave the belt in here because it's beautifully set in the box.
Oh my gosh.
There's that natural color scheme again.
Oh, come on over.
Beautiful.
actually, Lauren, so you've just said the color scheme. Is there anything in particular about that color scheme that you...
Well, the sage with the purple
Yeah.
is just, it's very natural and very sophisticated and very pretty. There's a couple different colors of green on here.
Take that out.
Am I meant to be picking something up in particular?
Yes, but not necessarily. But that's all right. Everything you said is correct. In fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to gently take her that way. Yeah, because she's there first. She's there second.
I like the cotton sausage rolls.
Yes, I mean, because this is.
Do you ever get tempted to just like beat each other with them and like have
Quite on a regular basis, yeah. Especially if she's annoying me.
I'm just going to straighten the skirt here a little
She
bit.
never annoys
Well,
me.
and also, but I have to say, if you look at it, this is, I think the way even this dress is packaged shows its special quality because we've had specific conservation materials made. It's not your typical donuts and sausages, as we call them. When we do packing textiles, this is made just for this dress. So, I'll talk about it as an artistic dress, and then I'll get back to that color thing. This is, I think, this is a quintessential artistic dress. It's the culmination of all the years of sort of discussion around reform and what dress should be. You can see that it's not too different from a typical
what year?
shape of the time. So this is around, we think, circa 1900.
Okay.
So it's not that far off from your shape of the period. And it's got these beautiful things, like it has this amazing bell sleeve.
Yes.
The pagoda sleeve. Actually, this was in style from the mid-Victorian period. It has a natural waistline with a bodice that's quite loose. You could possibly wear some things more, I want to say stays, but that's too early.
Yeah, a corset.
Yeah, a corset,
Yes, a corset.
but it doesn't have to be a tight lace strict corset at all.
Just enough for support.
That's enough for support. It's lightweight. It's this beautiful silk. What kind?
Is it a blend? Is
should
it
have
a
known. I
blend
should
of
have checked that.
silk or cotton?
To be quite
I know, I
honest,
should have
I'll
checked.
a
Can you
look.
check at the record first, Kat? Because I should know that right off the top of my head, but it is like, I'm blanking on the weave term that I want right now.
It's a plain woven, but it's not a taffeta.
No.
It's almost like a raw silk, maybe?
Yeah, that's kind of, I think, what I was trying to think of.
There's slugs in it. So, yeah, the more okay,
it's like a raw
slubby
silk, because you can see the thread.
Yeah.
And it's made that way. It's
But it's-
not that it's aged. It's actually aged really well.
It has. It doesn't look like a dupioni.
No.
But it
With
somewhere
velvet,
between a taffeta and like
with velvet ribbon trim and silk thread embroidery. Again, I think you were saying earlier. And if you look closely at some of it, again, we've got a mix of, it's that appearance looks really well, but if you look at some of the detail of the lines down here, it's a little bit shoogly again.
Shugly.
Shoogly.
our word of the trip. But yeah, we have French knots usually on it looks like it's mostly on the ribbon trim around the embroidery. It's heart shaped or leaf shape of this, and then we have that kind of abstract circular Art Nouveau design. They're not roses. They're just kind of
Like violet.
No, it's leaf. You're right that it's a leaf shape.
yeah.
So it's that natural organic motif again, and then the belt is, so you have it on, this tucks in, we've got the
Covers that
connectors
up,
here for the bodice to the skirt, and then the belt would just wrap around, covering up that lovely connection, and the belt hangs as well.
Drapes.
Yeah, so it's got a nice little medieval kind of thing going
Very
on.
romantic.
We
So
do-
this is silk as well, just
Yeah.
to
Okay,
chip
so
in
it's
there,
just
so
a plain
it
woven
is
silk.
silk. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm also glad you're speaking, Kat, so they can hear that they're actual Scottish people who are here at Glasgow.
Well, very few, but yeah. Like, we're being taken over, but yeah.
I know.
Most of our team are English. So it's
Well,
like-
that's right. I'm the rare American.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, it's just so beautiful the way the whole thing comes together. And we do have images of this, by the way.
Being worn.
We do have images being worn because very weirdly, I think, I'll be slightly critical, not of anybody who works here now, But at some time, I think in the 90s or something, somebody let somebody wear this dress. Do we know? What? So to model it for some reason. Now, luckily, it was a very petite person who had it on, and I think they were very careful about it. It's obviously in fine condition.
Yeah.
But it was just, I think, a different curatorial attitude. I don't know. Dresses aren't as important. Sure, put that on. It's just a bit of costume.
Yeah, it's just a dress.
Which we obviously treat this very differently now. We treat it as a very important object. And it's a rare object, because I will say one of the challenges of studying artistic dress is that most of them do not exist anymore. Yeah. Because they were made in a very costumey kind of way. It's just rare examples in collections. Most of them are later examples, like this 1890s, 1900.
Well, could you imagine, like, just for example, it's the 1960s, it's the 1970s.
I'm gonna come join you.
Come join us.
And you're going through,
please.
like, you know, an estate sale, or just like a rummaging through like a thrift store or something like that. And I'm not using, you know, British slang for this.
Yeah.
But just to kind of give you an example. And
Charity shop.
Yes. And you see a top like this, and you go, oh, that's really cool. I can wear it with my bell bottoms.
Oh,
It
yeah.
would be sweet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you pick that stuff up in like the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
Again, like feeling very hippie and
Yeah.
artistic.
My
and
mom's
then-
got stories like this.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a 1930s or a 1920s,
I know.
and I cut the
I used to
grain
go
off,
to. There's a great store in Miami for any Miami. If there's any Miami listeners out there, Miami Twice. And I would go get. It was
That's
Miami,
a great name.
Yeah, it was Miami Twice, and it was painted in that sort of deco-y color. And I'd get like 1960s smoking jackets and wear them to the club. I mean,
exactly.
you know. So
This would be,
so this was made very specifically, and I will say there's one more interesting thing about this one,
what do you
but
mean?
the colors about it.
the colors. So thing is with this one, because of the colors, we think it also quite possibly / probably was made as a suffragette.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course. See, our suffragette colors in the U.S. are different.
White.
So I don't think about it, but
Yes.
These are suffragette colors here, and
that would make
and so these women, the women associated with who are called the Glasgow girls now, mostly because there was an exhibition, a wonderful exhibition in the 90s called Glasgow Girls to highlight them.
Yeah.
But some of the other women who I haven't talked about as much were definitely suffragettes, although Anne Macbeth, who I mentioned, she was a suffragette. She was in prison for it. She was force-fed because she was on starvation protesting women who were being imprisoned for marching. That happened around 1910. We even have papers. In fact, there's a great blog post about it that these guys did. I can link you to.
Yes, share that.
And we have letters and papers from the school, from Glasgow School of Art Board of Governors, supporting her for her imprisonment, and she's saying, I'm feeling better but they force-fed me. So Anne Macbeth was her teacher, Daisy McGlashan's teacher. Okay. So this is a little bit earlier than that episode happened, but during this whole period, the women who were making these kinds of clothes were also associated with the new woman. And so now what we would consider to be feminists, but at the time was not a term, and they were
historic feminist dress.
Yes, it is.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
What I'm getting chills thinking about women's history and just like
I mean, we don't. It's not documented that she made this to be any kind of statement about suffrage, but it is the right colors, the right time, and the right. I mean, women who were involved in it, the right mindset. The women who were involved in it. I mean, there's definitely, and I know there's other people who are doing research in this area. There's a huge crossover between artistic dress and women's suffrage.
Well, of course.
And there's also
artists in politics.
I mean,
it's like they never go together.
Yeah. Women in politics is where it's starting. There's also at the Museum of London, there's a really beautiful banner that was made by Anne Macbeth, but it's essentially a quilt that was for a particular suffrage march. It was the Holloway March, and on it, so it's beautiful. It's total Glasgow style type at the top, and she's stitched in Emmeline Pankhurst's name, the major people who are organizing this march, and then on the quilt part is signatures of women who were imprisoned. So you can look at it at the Museum of London website, but I mean, there's a huge connection between making and craft as well. So not just in clothes, but in textiles and this sort of political movement.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those things where it's the time and knowing who was her teacher and what her world, and if you're designing this, and being an artist, you think about those sorts of things.
Yeah.
You don't just do something off, just because.
Yeah.
There's thought in this, and there's careful thought. So to connect it to the suffragette movement here in the UK,
It's very positive.
It's,
No, we think
gorgeous.
And it's
stunning.
so
Just
beautiful.
gorgeous.
I know, just absolutely love this dress. It's just, I mean, couldn't you just wear it?
Yes, I could.
Yeah.
And something I really love about the embroidery as well, and I know that you guys have mentioned this, is it's not the level of like inaccessible, cannot possibly do that myself ever. It has such a hand in it.
It does.
And I think it's purposefully made to look that way.
Yeah, it
Like
does.
it's
I mean, I
accessible.
look at this. I am not an embroiderer. I always wanted to be, except for that one time I did my jeans. But I look at that and I think, do you know what? I could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It obviously it wouldn't be as neat. I'd take some practice. I'm not sure. You've mentioned the French knots is hard, so I won't. But
You could do.
You could do it.
It's basic stitches. Like, I am not an embroiderer by any stretch of the imagination. I was taught basic embroidery stitches. I actually taught some to Sally, which is a funny side story. But all of these, it's straightforward stitching. There's nothing, like, the hardest thing I've seen in here are the French knots. But some people are really good at French knots.
Yeah.
Like,
Maggie's great at French.
yeah, they're time consuming because you have to do each one individually. You can't like cruise.
Yeah.
Like the satin stitches here, you can just bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Like the French knots, they take a little bit more time. But no, this is something that's completely accessible. It's something that anyone who just has the right size yarns, that's actually the biggest challenge for this to me in a recreation. Would be finding the right weight of yarn to do this.
But pearl, like readily accessible pearl, is really thick and big like that.
Yeah.
And like the bodice bottom edge is raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very
Machine sewn.
doable dress if you wanted to do a recreation or something.
Yeah, I was just
Do you have any
this.
students who are interested in pulling patterns off originals?
Possibly. I mean, it would be an interesting exercise. I'm not sure. They do come in and use the archive and collections quite a lot because I should say, anybody who ever wants to do research, we have an incredible archive of textiles and all kinds of things. In fact, we have a Fraser Taylor archive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have loads of 20th century stuff. I mean, if we were really going on, and there's not enough time, but we also have some incredible. I mean, most of the pieces in the collection are student pieces, but we have an incredible set of materials from sort of the early 20th century, like skirts that were influenced by the ballet russe.
Oh, nice!
I know, yeah. So really,
The belt with the buckle is still there, like intact.
The stay belt?
Yeah.
yeah. And then I was just doing very gently. You can see there is actually a little bit of a lined, lovely is that organza kind of to give you a little splash when you wave your arm. We've got a little bit there. I'm just
I bet this thing has got 100 closures on that bodice.
It's stitched on one side, and then there's
It's
a
a
snap,
plastron
and then
sort of.
hook and
It'll
and
have all
tack.
kinds of, this period has all kinds
It
of like
does.
snaps and hooks and this and
you're
that and
suddenly
all
like,
these
whoa,
panels
because it
that
looks
maybe you haven't
so
ever wanted.
that's so it can look very simple and put together on the exterior, but it's really quite complex.
It looks like looks like there's a lining. I guess we're not allowed to open this up, are we?
I wouldn't, just because it is
But you
fitted
can
to
see
that.
there's a hook in there, so it looks like there's a lining to help give it structure, so that way the front can billow out. But then it is just a couple of hooks and bars all the way down. There's a snap there. So yeah, I bet hook it, because this is stitched on one side, so the right hand side is stitched, and then
It hooks over as a piece.
not nearly as complicated as the one I got from the thrift shop, where it was like hook over here, hook over there, under the arm, over the neck.
1919 dress
Yeah.
I have that has a lot of embroidery on it. It was mass produced, and obviously younger than this. A lot of embroidery that is similar to the artistic embroidery we've been looking at. And it's a very simple brown kind of sack-like dress with a tie at the waist. And it has this cotton underbodice thing going on that's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you're finished, you're like, oh, that looks really simple. It's actually very similar to this because it has a plastron front like that goes.
You know, I do want to see. I don't think so, but can we see a pocket? Or not? No pocket. I don't think on this one.
It might be in the back.
Oh, is that
there
one
is.
right there? No. Wait.
There is a pocket.
There is a
There's
pocket?
There is somewhere.
I mean, we don't have to see it. I just wanted to know it was there. Because sometimes there's pockets at the waist.
Yeah.
The pocket's
skirt
actually
is
really,
lined.
sorry, I feel like I'm
Yes.
totally interrupting.
No. You're not. Not at all.
But the pocket is really interesting because it's right under here.
She put it down.
So she's put it right in here.
Secret
It's secret.
Gosh,
And it's
so
really
glad
deep
I
as
asked.
well.
So
it's
the
like
pocket
really,
secret
really
pocket for people
Secret
listening,
pocket.
and we're getting video of this, but it's down towards the hem.
So you
In
can
the
see it at
lining
back.
In the lining.
of the underskirt.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That is
Look at that.
so cool.
It's huge.
That's where you keep your secret stuff against the patriarchy.
Yeah, that's what we
right.
like to
I feel like we made a very subtle weed reference.
We like
It's
to
natural, don't you?
speculate in
Yeah,
group
exactly.
visits about what she would keep in that pocket as well. So
I can't believe in all the times I've had this dress out. No, I never, because I've been.
I just assumed you knew.
No,
Sorry.
I
Oh my
didn't.
gosh, your dress is
Do you know why? Because I
it
think-
has a pocket.
I think I'm always super protective about not rummaging the dress when it's out because I want it to
totally.
stay beautiful and perfect.
And then
So
it's boxed,
I did not
yeah.
know. But I'm so glad I asked because, of course, pockets are a big political conversation even now about women's trousers not being made with pockets. Women just want pockets. We're
Yeah.
trying to make wedding dresses with pockets.
Women have pockets,
So-
though. They're just maybe at the bottom.
Yeah, so the fact that she's like, this dress needs a pocket, also because many of the Victorian dresses I've examined in collections do have pockets, often in the waistband. It's like a little
Or
watch
in the-
pocket or a tiny little thing.
And you also see them like in the back at
Yeah.
the opening for like this era too.
Yeah.
That they're butt pockets, and so there was a bunch of costumers who made Edwardian gowns, and they put pockets in the
Yeah.
butt, and so they were always reaching back there like looking
Yeah.
for their phones and stuff.
Yeah.
For people listening, the skirt has two layers. There's a stronger interior layer with a gathered machine ruffle, and then the outer layer that has been embroidered is in the plain woven silk. So it has a wool braid for a hem support. I don't see any evidence of tarlatan or any sort of really heavy structure. It looks like the wool braid is doing most of the holding out of the skirt as well as the ruffle. So it's a very simple construction. It's the embroidery that makes it quite special, and the colors.
So this is just a last little bonus thing. One of the things that sort of was very connected to artistic dress was about actual costume plays and performances, tableau vivant. And so the interest in actual, what we call over here, fancy dress, historical costume, really influenced it. So these are examples of costume designs that were made by people associated with the school. So they were students, but they all often went on to be lecturers. And the main person I'm showing you is Dorothy Carleton Smith.
Okay.
And she's such an interesting figure because she was a costume designer. She worked for Shakespeare productions. She traveled. She came back to Glasgow. She was sort of the first head of School of Design, is what we would call it today.
Okay.
She taught fashion history at Glasgow. So this is where you see DCS on any of the drawings. Those are hers.
They're beautiful.
But also, very interestingly, we love her so much because she was actually appointed to be the next director of the Glasgow School of Art after Newbury in 1933, and then she had an aneurysm and died before she could take up the post. So we appointed a woman director that early, and she was considered, Newbury called her like the heart of the school. And she's the fashion and
so cool.
historian and maker and did a lot of that. So it shows a really rich, important history here.
Yeah.
But these are
hers.
so most of them are, you see, some of them say DCS, some of them have other initials of other. But what this was, the Mask of the City of Arms, was written by Newbury. You can see right there in the center. And this is one of a series of sort of performances that the students and staff wrote and did together in the history of the school. And they'd be these kind of, see, you let Glasgow flourish. The music actually for this was written by Dorothy's sister. She had two sisters. And they were performed. This one is performed. You see the proceeds are to be devoted to the Scottish Artists Benevolent Fund. But there was one performed when the school opened, the new Mackintosh building opened. There were ones performed kind of throughout this period. So, but the costumes, I mean, not only are the costume designs amazing, but we have photographs of them made up next to them.
Stunning. Do you see how her collar?
Oh, there's that shade.
Yeah. So it obviously came out looking different, but
Yeah.
there's the collar.
Yeah,
It's so similar to the one we were looking at.
It is interesting to compare sort of the drawing with the one as made, because the as made ones are obviously much simpler, you know,
Yeah.
they run out of time material, so
Yeah.
it just couldn't be
Yeah,
ours
exactly.
to faff with the beautiful
Yeah.
trim here, and then,
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
no time.
It's the theater.
It's a theatre, and short-lived too.
Excellent. These
So-
are beautiful.
And these
Thank
are
you so much
designs-
for sharing.
Oh, you're quite welcome, actually. This is just for Lauren, really. She did a whole set of designs for Macbeth.
That's cool.
And so these are some of them. We have other ones that are really incredible in frames, but they're all online. You can see them all at our website.
That's awesome. Thank you, Robyne, so much. And thank you, ladies, from
Thank you,
Glasgow
Pat and
School of Art
Jennifer.
for being so welcoming and hospitable to us. I can't promise that we won't have people wanting to come and look at stuff if they know it's available.
No, that's good.
Okay, good, excellent.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the American Duchess podcast. We want to give a special shout out to Dandy Wellington for giving us permission to use his music for our intro and outro. If you want to hear more of Dandy's music, check him out at dandywellington.com or anywhere you like to listen to music. Finally, if you want to know more about American Duchess, you can find us at www.americanduchess.com, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, All American Duchess, as well as other social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye!